Melanie Tolan.
And I'm Sarah Matthews.
And today we're talking about how notebooks can support integrated literacy.
One of the things I really am excited about with this series is I had a lot of success using notebooks when I was in the classroom in short-term and long-term, and I know you did as well. And I've talked to a lot of teachers recently that have also found a lot of success and are asking how they can start crossing over to notebooks across the contents, the interdisciplinary literacy that you were talking about.
They're an awesome way to give a voice to our students that's meaningful and it's authentic. And really importantly, it's building that stamina that students need for writing in all content areas.
Right, and I like that there's an access point for all students. You can really use it as a thinking tool. It doesn't just have to be based on a prompt. It can be where students start to develop their conceptual understanding of what you're talking about in class.
And it's great within the content areas because it's a way for students to practice the habits of mind for that specific discipline.
They really can help guide instruction. It's often hard to figure out what are my students having misconceptions around, what are they excited to learn more about, and so this is a quick snapshot and a place that a teacher can look to see what are my students thinking about.
So a lot of you are probably wondering, how do I get this started? And we're going to show you the first steps to getting your students to create their own notebooks.
So Melanie, I can't wait to get off the ground with my notebooks. Where do I start?
All right. Okay, first things first, we need our nice little supplies list. You should have this. If you do not, we did put a link onto the blog. We want to start out with ordering journals, but I want to be careful with that word. A writer's notebook or a science notebook or social studies, it's quite different from a journal. It's really a place for thinking, and there's different types that we can use.
Right, and as Melanie said, it is really a place to be used as a thinking tool. So here's a couple of the notebooks that we have here that you can order through this form that Melanie brought up. This is the composition book, just kind of the standard one you see. It works in the hall because there's no staples, there's no metal, there's nothing like that. And this is what I use when I worked with short-term students.
You can also, if you have students for a longer period of time, it's really fun to let them personalize their own notebook. So we have a couple in the office. Sarah and I both like this one, but this one works too. And let your students have some fun with it. So we both created our own notebooks. And we have quotes, we have favorite books, pictures of people that are important to us, words. Feel free to have some fun with it and let students really own it. And make sure that you have your own notebook. We always want to model what we're doing with students. It's a great place to share your own observations, writings with your students.
And the beauty of a notebook, as a teacher, it's really fun to be creative and have ownership within your own class. And there's no one right way to do the notebook. So you can kind of make agreements with your students that are going to work for your class for what you're trying to do. So we've been to different trainings over the past year, and I know even in very content-specific ones to notebooking at large, sort of the constants that we see throughout all of the trainings are that you always want to have an organizational structure. So something that worked for me as kids were coming and going, even throughout the class sometimes, was to always make sure I had a table of contents, and I started there. I really modeled that with my students daily, dating, putting the title and the page number. So if you're going to do that, you might want to save a little bit more room. That's a lesson I learned, to save more room for my table of contents. And make sure to number the pages front and back right from the get-go. Maybe even start numbering 1 through 20 with your students, just right there that day to get started.
You can also use tabs instead of table of contents if you prefer, that clearly label each section of the notebook.
Yeah, and I think another thing with the tabs, I love the idea of tabs, it's great, Melanie, is adding in, if you're going to have different things within the contents, you can really kind of differentiate, like, maybe you have certain articles and the student just wants to name, this is the article that I found interesting about whatever it is, and they can tab it so they can get to it quickly, and this can be another place that they capture that as well.
You can include some other fun things. You can have a dedication where you dedicate it to someone. You can have some introductory kind of activities that just get kids thinking about the discipline that you're working in.
And I know I love quotes, a lot of students I teach love quotes, and this one quote for me, it says, "Science as practice involves doing something and learning something in such a way that the doing and the learning cannot be separated," and giving kids an opportunity to really explore what are quotes that mean something to you, and giving them that space, that ownership, whether it's a student at the hall or a student you're going to have all year. This is really a place for them to have an identity.
In future series, we're going to be talking about how the notebook works in specific literacy disciplines like ELA, science, and social studies. So those will be coming in the next few weeks. I'll end with a quote that I have about writing. It says, "Writing means sharing. It's part of the human condition to want to share things, thoughts, ideas, opinions." See you next time.